Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Legal Ease, the show that converts legal jargon into legal ease. I'm sure by now you noticed that this is a live show and we have a new time slot, and henceforth this is the time that you will be able to catch Legal Ease, which is Monday nights at 8:30. We do apologize for being late tonight due to unforeseen circumstances. Now, by popular demand, we are reintroducing some of the concepts that we covered under the first part of the series dealing with inheritance rules from the Quran. And tonight we will be doing part 2 of the show, and it gives me great pleasure once again to welcome my very special guest, a scholar in the Arabic language, Brother Abdul Samad. Abdul Qadir, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Ashraf. Thanks to invite me, Alhamdulillah. And from what we received, a lot of report back on what we did the last part 1. And
yes,
Alhamdulillah, out there the people were really impressed and satisfied. It is the Quran, you know.
Absolutely, and I think, being the primary book of laws, exactly. And our guidance comes directly from that regarding all matters. But especially, I think inheritance was kind of, to my mind, often overlooked or misunderstood. It was always this thing about, let's not talk about it, let's not do anything about it, because it's, it was, the underlying tone was always unfairness, 2/3, 1/3. But as you unpacked very, very ably, you managed to make us see that that was not actually the starting point.
Exactly.
It was the ending point.
Ending point. You see what is very, very important, as you use that word, we got to level the ground first.
Yes.
You got to see, for instance, the estate that you are going to divide. Obviously, there are contributions by different people.
Sure.
And these people, and especially the older children, and many a time what happens is that the daughters get married.
Right.
And this is a trend within our community. And I've had a lot of cases whereby you find that the sons are told to run the business and give a certain allowance to the sisters every month. That is not what the Quran talks about. You got to give them outright their share, unless they accept to be a partner in the business. You can even do it that way. But you cannot say we are going to give you allowance. That is totally wrong. This is what's happening. Mm-hmm. And therefore you find that people are very shy to cut the slice and give it to their daughters. This is where our problem lies.
So just to make make the point clear, when you say an allowance, they're not given their share of the inheritance.
No.
It is held back,
yes.
And then an allowance is given to them every month instead of their share.
And not in proportion to the inheritance also.
Right.
For instance, if you have a daughter and or 2 daughters and you have a son, and if you feel the daughters are owning about 10% each, mm-hmm. So the allowance should be 10% of the profit.
Right.
But that is not happening. What happens is that they are just given a certain amount, and this is your monthly we are giving you, but this is actually not correct. Because right. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, faridatan, it is compulsory. You see, and being compulsory, you cannot go and say that we are just going to bypass the law.
Okay, so another example will be if you give zakat, which is compulsory, on installments.
Yes.
Or you do your salah in installments. Or you do your hajj in installments. Yes. Okay. Now, just by way of background, we're going to open the lines very shortly, so please be ready with your questions. Just a disclaimer, Brother Abdul Samad has said we're not going to be delving into disputes regarding estates, etc. There are a lot of organizations out there, principally the Muslim Mediation Arbitration Council, based at the Jamiat building in Fordsburg, where you can go and you can register a dispute and you can ask them to adjudicate. The reasons for that is that it's too complex for us to try and answer those. What we want to give is a broad understanding of the law and how you can comply with it. But I just want to give a short background into what makes a will valid in South Africa. Yes. So we might have the contents of the will according to Islamic law, as you've explained, yes. But there are certain things that the master looks for. Number 1, obviously the will must be in writing. Number 2, it must be signed by the testator. Now, if the testator can't sign, then he can even put a mark. But somebody, a doctor or a lawyer, must be able to certify that they were there when the mark was put.
Yes.
Now the date is important because you must say this was your last will and testament and date it. Otherwise, any previous wills that you made will be the will that the master will accept.
Yes. Unlike
Thirdly, the inheritance, the heirs. The heirs cannot be witnesses. This is very, very critical. If you're an heir in a will, you cannot sign that as a witness to the will. That will be a reason for the master to disallow the will.
But you can be an executor.
Executor, executrix, administrator, beneficiary, you can be all of those things, but you cannot be a witness. There's a section there that says for the witnesses, you cannot. Thirdly, you must be able to say and direct to the master that your executors, trustees or administrators do not have to give security for the winding up of the will. Otherwise, the master will call for security. It's another expense. Fourthly, remember that good estate planning actually fits in very well with the Islamic concept of leveling the playing fields and giving things out even before your death, because you attract an estate duty of up to 25% of any amount over 3.5 million rands in cash in 90 days. So it's very, very important to understand that a lot of people have got assets like houses, insurance policies, etc. Those are deemed assets. They fall into the estate for estate duty calculations. So I just want to say I'm not an expert in family law or estate planning. These are just general concepts.
But one thing that we must understand, that your will cannot be subject to the state law. For instance, when it comes to family law, they are trying to see that the family law is passed. And as far as the will is concerned, you can write your will as and how you want.
Yeah, there is the thing what we call freedom of testation. Yes. That's why you're able to write a will in terms of the Islamic laws of inheritance.
You write as you want to.
Exactly. So the state doesn't dictate, but there are basic minimum standards for the will not to fail. If the will fails, then that estate cannot be adjudicated in terms of the Islamic will.
Like for instance, you see here you find Allah also talks about it, ma'rufa.
Yes.
You see, qaqulu qawlan ma'rufa. You find wherever it is, this word ma'rufa is a very important word. When you come to, you see, like you see bil ma'ruf.
Yes.
Bil ma'ruf. It must not be sort of one-sided or unjust.
Right.
You see, whatever you do, you can do on your own. But there must be certain consideration that you do not do one against the other. You see, this is that one word tells us that you have to be fair even when you're distributing everything.
Yes, yes, yes.
Unless circumstances, like we said last week, that if you have certain children that are sick or ill, you have educated the older children and the younger ones has to be given that some part of the inheritance to educate themselves. Or for instance, you might have a disabled child or things like that, exceptions. But once the Quran says bil ma'ruf, it must be done as far as possible according to chapter 4 verses 11 and 12.
Brother Absam, just to recap, just some of the main principles that we covered in the last show.
Well, the main principle is, you see, we got to understand one very important thing, that you see, when we take a will, right, when a person makes a will, you cannot make a will on 100% of your estate. You got to decide. You see, the Quran is given you two leeways. One is that as far as debt is concerned, people whom you are owing, or you can make a wasiyah. Now, you see the contribution of certain members of the family. Somebody may argue, no, you cannot write a wasiyah for people who are entitled to inherit. You see?
Yes.
But what happened, you can treat it, if you want to have a clear conscience on it, you can treat it as a debt. To say that I'm owing my daughter such and such amount, she has worked in my business, whatever it is, for so many years, and my wife has worked for so many years, and at the same time you find my older children has come into the business and they have worked. So obviously they are, in other words, the person who's making the will, right, the testator, is actually indebted to that person. So you got to give that allowance first. Then you say, okay, whatever is left over, we got to distribute. And another very important thing is, why has the Quran got 2 shares to the male as compared to 1 share to the female? That's a very important thing, is, but because if you look at the duties on the male member of the family, it's tremendous. For instance, at the time of marriage, the male has to pay the dowry. He's responsible for the day-to-day expenses of the house. And if he has got an old parent, he has to look after it according to Sharia. And if his daughter, for instance, his sister is divorced, that becomes his responsibility. And even after that, if he dies, he has to leave, in terms of chapter 2, verse 240, he's got to leave 1 year's board and lodging.
That is very important, a point that you made on the last occasion.
Yeah. So you find that there are extra duties, and therefore what happened, the female does not have all those duties.
Right.
You see, although if she can afford it, she should voluntarily come and help, but it is not compulsory for her. It is compulsory for the male, therefore he is given. But you find certain things, like for instance, if there are, for instance, parents, they both get 1/6 each. That is also equal there.
Irrespective of male, female.
Yeah.
As long as you classify it as a
because
parent.
you see, if there are children and the parents are alive, the parents get 1/6 each. Of course, if for instance, if there are no children, then the father gets 2/3 and the mother gets 1/3. And there too you find that it is a duty of the father to look after the mother. And therefore, you see, it is by law he has to look after. There's no excuse for him to say that should I look after the old lady or not. By law he has to.
Interesting point. So our lines will be open shortly, and if you do recall the number, it should appear on the screen. You'll be able to call in and join the conversation. Brother Samad, the last time where we were in the discussion regarding the Islamic will, I think you stopped at the point where we were talking about the wife's contribution.
Exactly. You see, what happens, for instance, this is another very important thing we should deal with.
Yeah.
That, for instance, if a person has written a testament or a will, and there the family feels that this was not correct, there are some, as the Quran says, that he has done certain things that is ismuhu, that it's not fair, in other words. Like the Quran says, bil ma'ruf, then they can call up a meeting and adjust that will. They can do that in terms of Islamic law, but not in an unjust way. That's one point. And another point is, you see, like here, now this verse tells us very, very clearly that yusikumullahu fi awladikum. Now you see, there's a big problem here. Allah gives you command about your awlad. Now what is the meaning of awlad? Right, awlad. Because you see, a lot of people say that according to this law and that law, it's only your immediate children. Right, awlad actually means also progeny. It could apply to your children and your grandchildren. Like for instance, according to some schools of thought, for instance, if the son dies, right, the son's family are not entitled to inheritance. You see, from the grandfather. The grandfather can just bypass to say that no, this son had died and therefore his children is not entitled. But you see, my argument is Allah talks about awlad, and awlad would mean children and grandchildren and progeny. So what happens if, for instance, if the son dies, then the grandfather can make a will to say that this so-and-so has died and his share must be distributed as if he had been alive, how he would have distributed among his wife and his children.
But that accords with the civil law as well.
Yes.
It's called representation per stirpes. So you can say that in the event of ex predeceasing the testator,
yes, exactly,
then his children, as you pointed out,
yes,
you see, that the word does not only mean your immediate children, it could include grandchildren.
Grandchildren
so,
as well.
So the civil law also applies for that, and the point makes provision for that. The point you made earlier on is also in the civil law, that of redistribution. So the heirs can get together and say, look, we know that we're entitled to this, but we, by agreement, say that we're waiving our rights. So that's acceptable, right?
Yes.
You can waive your right to inheritance in favor of somebody else.
Yeah, what they call the cessation.
Yeah.
You cede the right.
Yeah.
But I believe it must be done in writing and witnessed.
Yes.
Because what happened tomorrow, say for instance, A cedes the right, and A's children later on could come and claim.
The master will not accept an oral session.
Yes.
It has to be a redistribution agreement signed by the parties and recorded by the master.
Exactly.
So it accords once again with the Islamic.
Because we hear quite often where you find people tell us, you know what, I am okay, give my share to so and so. But it must be done in writing.
Writing, yes.
Otherwise, what happens? You can't say after a while the person who has said I'm okay.
Yes.
He can lose his wealth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then his children will come fighting. You see, that's another point.
Time for a short break. Please stay tuned. Join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Legal Ease, the show that converts legal jargon into legal ease. And tonight I have the pleasure once again to host Abdul Samad Abdul Qadir, who is also a fellow presenter, but he has his own show on the Arabic language. He is a scholar of the Arabic language. And as in this episode and the previous one, we're trying to understand and unpack the Quranic rules regarding inheritance. Brother Abdul Samad?
First of all, I would not call myself a scholar of the Arabic language. I count myself still as a student, you know.
Right, a student
exactly.
of the Arabic language.
Sure.
We're talking about the husband's share.
Yes.
Help us understand.
You see, after leveling the ground, for instance, here is an estate, and whatever the wife's contribution is, you got to give her first. For instance, she's been standing in the till with you, or she has been in your business. You may be a lawyer or a doctor, whatever it is, and she may have just done the invoices. Or it could be where Allah says, you know, it is both the mother and the father's duty to bring up children, and she has become a full-time housewife. So obviously, even before you give her the slice of her inheritance, she's already owning part of your estate, maybe 20%, 30%. You got to work it out. But now we come to the husband's share, for instance. Here Allah says, وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ. And for you is half of what your wives leave. إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُنَّ وَلَدْ, if they have no children, no child. Right? But فَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُنَّ وَلَدْ, but if they have a child, فَلَكُمْ رُبْعُ مِمَّا تَرَكْنَا, then for you is 1/4 of what they leave. In other words, a quarter. That is from the wife. Then comes, this is after the Masiya and Yusi Biha Audain, after the debts has been paid. As we said, the leveling ground is very, very important. Now comes a wife's share, which we وَلَهُنَّ رُبُّ مِمَّا تَرَكْتُمْ. And for them, that is for wife, is a quarter of 1/4 of your estate. Of course, after giving them what is their contribution. This is a very important thing we must emphasize. Illam yakun walad, if there are no children. But فَإِنْ كَانَ لَكُمْ وَلَدٌ فَلَهُنَّ السُّمُنُ. But if you leave a child, then for them is an 8. You see, مِمَّا تَرَكْتُمْ, for what you leave. Right? But here we got to emphasize again and again that you got to give her contribution. You can't just say, oh, Sharia I must give 1/8 to the wife.
I think that's the common interpretation.
Yes. Yeah. You got to give her contribution towards your joint estate first. Now we come to another very important after that. You see, also what happens is, you see, there are cases where you might have an individual who might be not married, he has got no children, but he's got parents, and the Sharia calls it kalala.
Right.
Now they are mentioned in 2 parts of the Quran, one in chapter 4 verse number 12 and one in chapter 4 verse 176. Now for instance here, وَإِنْ كَانَ رَجُلٌ يُرَسُ كَلَالَةً إِمْرَأَةٌ, but if a male or a female is a kalala, that is type 1 I call it, right? That is who have parents but no children, then what happens is you find وَلَهُ أَخٌ أَوْ أُخْتٌ, and this person is a spinster or a bachelor, has a brother or a sister, then each of them what they do, they get 1/6 each. Right? For instance, you say, here is Muhammad. Right? He's got parents.
Right.
Right? But he's not married, he's got no children. So when he dies, his parents will get, we did that already, 1/6 goes to the mother and 1/3 for the father, double the amount. But the brother or the sister will get. But if he's got, for instance, 2 or 3, a mixed bag, so you get, that is 1/3, that is of that whatever is there has to be shared among other siblings.
Right.
Now you could be a case where type 2 of a kalala, for instance, in terms of chapter 4 verse 186, right, where there are no parents.
Right.
Then you have an only brother is a sole heir.
Right.
Right. Then he inherits everything.
Oh.
Right. From the sister.
Oh, I see.
Right. If the sister dies without any, there are no parents, and at the same time there are nobody else, no children, then the brother is a sole heir. And only sister inherits half of his estate. For instance, the brother dies, leaving no parents, and is just one sister, so she gets half. Exactly like how chapter 4 verse 11 works.
So
and
who
then
gets the other half?
the other half, actually, if it's in a place where there are a state or a Muslim country, they are going to take it to the Baytul Mal or something like that.
So it
Or
goes.
at the same time, he could have left an wasiya, remember that?
Sure.
That other half, he could have written to say, I'm giving to my adopted child, or I am giving to my...
Or to the same sister for her contribution, isn't it?
Exactly, you
Yeah.
can even do that too, but it is compulsory that he should give half of it. But if, for instance, he could say, I'm giving it to the SPCA, he may be a lover of animals.
Yeah.
He could say, I'm giving it to the madrasa or to the school or whatever it is, as we did at the very beginning, that he can make his wasiyah to the other half.
Yeah.
Then if there are mixed bag, exactly like chapter 4 verse 11, where you have 2 shares to the brothers and 1 share to the girl, that's how it will work, you see. And what is very important also, you see, we cannot go and contradict these verses, what the Quran has said. You find a lot of places, you find that the Maulana told me this, and I read this in the hadith, or I read that, because you see, when these kuffars come to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا, those who do not expect the meeting with us, that is with Allah, أَعْتِي بِقُرْآنٍ غَيْرِ هَذَا أَوْ بَدِّلْهُ, that bring a Quran other than this or change it. Look at the reply what Allah's Nabi give, Kul ma yakunu li an ubaddilahu. Right, say, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it is not for me to change it, min tilqai nafsi, on my own accord. So whatever the Quran has told us already, right, we cannot change it, because these are the orders. I mean, from chapter 10 verse 15, it is so clear. Because what happened, I had a few calls. People are saying, yeah, I was told like this and I was told like that. I said, well, to the best of my ability, we have given you these verses from the Quran, and if you have got to change that thing, which means you are changing, you want to change the Quranic principles, with the Nabi himself, you know, he was so scared. For instance, in attabi'u illa ma yuha ilayya, I follow only what is revealed to me, right? And also, inni akhafu in asaitu rabbi azaba yawmin azim, surely I fear, if I should disobey my Lord, the punishment of a mighty day. So if Allah's Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us, right, chapter 10 verse 15, that he is not allowed to change any of these laws, so who dare to change it?
Well, like you say, there are people calling you and they're saying that they've been told this, that and the other. So
Exactly.
I think the change comes from people that want to change it.
Well, you see,
Or interpret these
interpret
formulas.
things.
From what I'm seeing, there are formulas.
yes, yes.
The set formulas are there.
Right. But what happens, you see, people, they like to sort of favor one child against the other. And sometimes you find that they carry on in such a way, like for instance, a person has got a business. Its mentality is such that he doesn't want that business to be split up. Right? Because if he feels that if he will give the daughter the share, right? According to the wasiyat or whatever it is, if he gives certain other people, his business is going to be split up. So he does not want to do those things. So he's trying to find out all kinds of excuses. This man told me that, and I read this, and I read that, and I read that. But I think the laws are very straightforward.
Well, everything depends on the intention, isn't it?
Exactly. Innamal a'malu binniyat.
Yes. Now, you were saying that there was a wife share as well, right?
Yes.
We dealt with the wife
Yes.
share. Now, what about slaves? Can they inherit from you?
You see, you can write in your, first of all, slavery is not allowed in Islam. You see, some people will tell you there's no specific verse, because we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that it is not proper for anyone who has received guidance, received wahi, to say people, kunu ibadallah, be my slaves. You see, so we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done in the Quran every simple act. Every simple act.
Sorry, we have a. I understand we have a caller. Please, can I ask you to switch off your TV? Wa salam, bhai. Can you switch off your TV, because we're getting feedback and we can't hear you. Wa alaikum salam.
We're getting feedback and we can't hear you.
All right.
How are you, Shuyukhi?
Wa alaikum salam. We well,
Assalam
thank you.
wa
Thank you for your
rahmatullah.
call.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
Alaikum
salam wa
salam.
rahmatullah.
How are you, Shuyukhi?
Alhamdulillah. And how are you?
My name is Abshir Mahmoud.
Go ahead with your question, Ashraf.
I think we lost the caller. Please call again, but here's a general reminder to all of you. Please, when you call in, kindly switch off your television sets. We cannot take that call because we're getting feedback in the studio. So we're hearing ourselves and we can't hear your question. And it makes it very difficult for us to try and engage with you. So please kindly switch off your TV sets when you do call in. So, Brother Samad, this is an important verse that you were reciting earlier on. Those who do not expect a meeting with us say, bring us a Quran other than this, or change it. Now, isn't that in the modern era, don't you find people saying the same thing? They want to amend and abridge,
Yeah, so
and they want to change, and they saying these things about the Quran, but
this is a tragedy. We find some people will tell you, yeah, the Quran was revealed in the 7th century. It was meant for those people at that time and not meant for us. And what happens is, we know when Allah revealed it in His wisdom, whatever He said, whether it is half the share or you find there are lots of other things, they will say, no, there's a discrepancy here, that why Allah is favoring one person against the other, favoring male as far as the female. But if you balance it up, you find it is so logical. For instance, one of the very famous thing is they want to talk about rights, status of women in Islam. They feel that the women have got less.
we have a caller on the line. Caller, please go ahead. Okay, no.
So what we find that that they usually tell you that in Islam the man has got a higher status than the women. But if you look at the verses throughout the Quran, you find that for instance, chapter 4, verse 32 tells us walil nisa'i nasibu walil rijali nasibu mimma iktasabu, for a male is a portion of what he earns, walin nisa'i nasibu mimma iktasabna, and for a woman is a portion of what she earns. And then if you look at chapter 40, verse 40, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that waman amila salihan, whoever does good, min zakarina unsa, except irrespective of whether you are a male or a female, Allah will reward you. There is no distinction as far as reward is concerned, either material gain like chapter 4 verse 32, even if you are at workplace, or spiritually, whatever you do when you make Hajj or your Ramadan, whatever you do, Allah will not give you any special thing to say you are a male, you are going to get more reward in it. But besides this question of of inheritance. And as we say, if you make a balance sheet, the woman gets more than that.
Well, I mean, without having to really delve into it much further, you've actually very ably explained why there is a mathematical discrepancy.
Exactly.
Although the playing fields, as you said, must be leveled at the start, and later on you can go according to the formulas.
And then funny enough, while I was doing my research, I went through the YouTube, and I went through so many of the people who were explaining. And each one I found that emphasis was made again and again on the inheritance of women. It seemed that this is a very big problem within our community, where we are depriving the women, especially the daughters, of the inheritance. You see, and this is one thing that we hope that the community wakes up to the cause, to say that no, our daughters, we especially where the daughters have contributed to the business, they are completely kept away from it.
Right.
You see, and then it seems that you do not want to split up your big business that you have gone, and you do not want to give the daughters, and they are going to go into their in-laws, and they are going to take our business away from us. They're going to split up. But that is Allah's law. You must remember, Allah says, Wallahu khairul raziqeen. Allah is the best of providers. We are not going to say that now, look at, I'm going to give my daughters away, and my business, instead of being 100%, is going to become 60%, or how will my children manage, or something like that. You can bring them as partners, but not to get allowance. Right. I know of families that are giving allowance to the daughters.
In lieu of the actual inheritance.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you feel you don't want to break up the business, what you can do is you say, okay, we'll bring you in as partners. Right? There are so many brothers, so many sisters. Right? For instance, if there are 2 brothers and 2 sisters, to say, okay, 2 brothers will receive 2 shares each, that is 4 shares, the 2 shares, so there are 6 shares, so each one is 1/6 owner of it. So the brothers are 2/6 owners, and the sisters, make them partners if you don't want to split up the business, but not this business of giving them a certain allowance every month, which is not even equivalent in proportion to their inheritance, to their share.
I think a very, very interesting point there. Just to remind the viewers that the lines are open, but we're having a lot of feedback. Please, when you do call and you're trying to engage with us, please switch off your television before you call, so that we can actively engage with you. It doesn't help us because we can't hear you when your TV is on, but you're welcome to call in once again and join the conversation on a very, very interesting, and I must say, a topic that has been unpacked very nicely and simply.
Exactly.
By you, to make us understand this, and this has been a lot of the feedback that we've received from the public at large.
In fact, if they go to the YouTube, what we did last week, it's the fundamental principles of inheritance we have covered last week.
Yes.
If they go into YouTube and you find that it was the 11th of October did we do that show, just go there and you'll find the whole show is there.
Right.
You see, and they can go through it themselves and learn whatever has to be learned.
And if they want to contact you, how do they contact you? What is your contact?
Well, as I said, that I do not want to.
I just want to make you pause there. Sorry, we have a caller. Caller, please go ahead. That caller we've lost.
Again.
Is there another caller? I think there was something wrong here with the lines, because there's 4 callers in a row. The lines are cutting. Brother Samad, I think it's an important topic. The fact that there's so many callers, but we can't get to take their questions. How would they contact you? What do you have, like an email and telephone?
The point is, they don't have to contact me. As I said, everything is there in the YouTube.
Yes.
They can go through it.
Right.
You see, now when I do a program, I'm not doing there to open the lines.
We have a caller. We do have a caller. Caller, please go ahead. Hello? Hello? Caller, please go ahead. We can hear you, but hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us? Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Abdul Samad sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What is your question, sir?
ये बहुत ही अहम प्रोग्राम है अब्दुल समद साहब के ये कुरान की बातें हो रही हैं और ये वसीयत का जो मजमून है ये बहुत आजकल हमारी कम्युनिटी में ये लोग कुरान को दरकिनार कर देते हैं और अपने अपने हिसाब से वो कानून बनाते हैं। ये तो बहुत बुरी बात है। ये जो प्रोग्राम आप चला रहे हो ये बहुत अहम प्रोग्राम है। खुसूसन हमारे जो तिजारतमंद के लोग हैं इस पर गौर करें और इस पर ख्याल करें कि अल्लाह का जो हुक्म है वो जो अटल है अपनी जगह है, वो हम समझ नहीं पाते बाज़ औक़ात और इधर से उधर कर देते हैं, अंग्रेज़ी कानून पे चले जाते हैं। अंग्रेज़ी कानून अपनी जगह है, ये हम मानते हैं। जिस मुल्क में हम रहते हैं इस्लामी ममालिक नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी कुरान तो पहली बात है हमारे लिए, एक मुसलमान के लिए। और हमेशा हमें ये मद्देनज़र रखना चाहिए कि कुरान हमारा कानून है और अल्लाह का हुक्म है। हुज़ूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के ज़रिए ये कानून हमें मिला है और हमें इस पर गौर करना चाहिए और हर दम ये हमारा फ़र्ज़ है कि इस अहकाम पे हम चलें।
शुक्रिया, शुक्रिया। आपका इस्म शरीफ, आपका इस्म शरीफ?
अब्दुल कादिर, मेरे इसमें शरीफ है शकील महमूद।
शकील महमूद, शुक्रिया, शुक्रिया। आपने शुक्रिया, बड़ी मेहरबानी जो आपने ख़ास कर जो आपने कहा। I'll just translate in English what you
Just
said.
we need to go for a short break. That was a very interesting call,
Yes, all right.
and we'll come back to that. Please stay tuned.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the last segment of Legal Ease, the show that converts legal jargon into legal ease. And tonight, which is part 2 of the show that we initially covered with Brother Samad Abdul Qadir regarding the inheritance rules from the Quran. Just before the break, we had a lengthy exchange by a gentleman. It was in Urdu.
Yes, it was in Urdu, and it was Brother Shakil. And he had to tell us that what a shame it is that the Quran has made the law so clear, especially regarding the women. And he says that we are disregarding, especially the big business people. He emphasized the tijarati, mean the big business people. They are disregarding, and as I said, that even in my research, whenever I went into all the various Google, whether it was Google or WhatsApp, and I found that this thing is a trend, especially in the Indo-Pak, it's a trend that they just disregard. We don't know whether it was an influence of the Indian culture or what it is, but it is a trend, like the brother said, that we are completely disregarding the principles of the Quran, and we are depriving our women folk of this inheritance. See?
So is that, he was obviously...
In a nutshell, this is what he said.
Okay.
You see? And also, what we should also know, and you see a lot of people when they write the will, and they have adopted children. Now this we got to make it very clear.
Yes.
You see, in terms of chapter 33, if you read there in the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter 5 onwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, you call your adopted children by your own names. They are not your adopted, they are not your real child. You see, adopted children, only biological children are there to legally inherit from you. But there's a way out, like we say, we can put a wasiyat, as the Quran says, at the time of distribution, there are people, the orphans are there or others are there. You can even give them something.
So again, it dispels the myth that adopted children can never inherit from you, because I think that's the view that they take.
Yes.
Because the Quran says that, then they say they can never inherit. But what you're saying is there is leeway, there is wasiyat. There is that other portion that you can easily distribute.
Because the Quran says that at the time when you qismat, meaning Allah says when you are distributing, others are there. This this adopted child may be an orphan. Allah mentions orphan, and He mentions zil qurba, relatives other than your own ascendants, descendants, and your siblings, and also al masakin. So you can find that the adopted child can come into one of them. You see, that is where you can solve it. There's no such thing as you cannot. And also what happens is that you find that sometimes you find people want to say that I am bound by my Hanafi law. Right? Like a grandfather can say that no, my grandchildren cannot inherit me because my son had died before me. Right? So there is a way out where you find that if he wants to, he can look at the point, as he said, from the wasiyat point of view. He can give them and a certain amount he can give from the wasiyat.
Yeah.
He does not have to deprive a child.
Sure.
But my argument is Allah talks about awlad, and awlad means children and children's children.
Right. So there's actually a dual justification.
Exactly.
Not to cut them off. So I
So
think the basis of this whole thing is just pure common sense, isn't it? You can't cut anyone out. You
Yeah.
can't deprive somebody of a right and be fair to everyone
Yes.
just because of their contribution. I mean,
Now, another thing is you find that I get lots of calls where people are talking about illegitimate children.
yes, now tell us about
You see,
that. Yeah.
now you find that they say no, my parents, I was expecting before my parents make nikah, or I'm an illegitimate child. What is the situation? That you cannot disinherit the child. You see, the child, you cannot say that this child is not entitled to anything. There is a way out where the Quran says, you
We
see,
have a caller. Please.
you have yatama,
pause.
masakin, and so many people that come.
Caller, please go ahead.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum
Islam.
salam.
I've got a question, man. My father got married to another lady, right? Now, he passed away. He had no children from that lady. I'm the only son. The only that's left is a house, furniture, and belongings. Now, I don't get it, but she's staying currently in that property and she wants to resolve the get it according to Sharia.
So you're looking for advice. So where is your mum? Is she around?
My mom is around, but my mom and my dad had passed away with divorce.
Right. So the situation is the deceased was divorced.
Yes,
He's got one son and he's got another wife.
that's
The
correct.
wife occupies the house
That's
and they
correct.
want to resolve the estate according to Sharia.
See, what is very important, there must be a cut-off point. Like say, for instance, a person marries and his wife dies. At that time, they should wind the estate and start afresh with the new wife. Then there's no problem. But the moment the estate is not wound up after the death of the first wife,
Yeah.
right, then what happened? You continue with that thing, then it becomes a mixture.
Okay.
Right. Say for instance, you say now Muhammad, he's married and he leaves he's got, his wife dies, right, and leaves 3 children. So you wind it up and then he starts afresh.
Okay, but in this case, the situation is there are 2 wives. One was previously divorced, one was currently married to the deceased, and there's 1 son. What would the formula be?
The formula, as I said, you got to have a cut-off point. When you divorce the first wife, you say, right, were there any children or no children, whatever.
He's the child from
the
the first
wife.
marriage, yes.
So that is what his father should have done, should have wound up the estate as though now that he has come to the end
Or
of
he
it.
hasn't, but what advice would you give if they want to comply?
Well, they must go into it, get a good accountant and find out at the time of the first marriage, the divorce, what was the financial situation, level it up and then start afresh with the new wife.
But the wife that was divorced doesn't inherit, is that right? Because she's divorced.
She won't divorce, but the point is, you see, her contribution has to be paid.
Yeah, well, as you said,
Yeah.
you know, as Brother Abdul Samad said at the beginning, level the playing fields, don't let
Exactly.
anyone feel bad.
Yeah.
I think the advice he's giving is go back, do a recalculation, see what is due to your mum, see what is due to you, see what is due to the current wife who's now a widow,
Okay.
and see if you can't resolve it that way.
Okay.
Okay? I hope that's helping you.
Is there somebody Cape Town that can assist in terms of resolving this case?
I personally don't know of
You
any.
can go to the MJC, they can help
Muslim Judicial Council is what I'm told. MJC.
MJ. Okay, Jazakallah.
You're welcome. Thank you
Shukran,
for your
welcome.
contribution, your question.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
So
salam.
we have these problems quite a lot where a person has been married, either the first wife dies or is divorced.
Unfortunately, I have to stop you. I
Okay,
know it's
all
an
right.
in-depth topic.
All right.
We've run out of time again. A very, very interesting topic. And I must say thank you very much,
Shukran.
Rab
Most
Samad,
welcome.
for your time and your effort and the way that you put together the slides and helped us to understand directly by looking at individual words and the Quranic ayats.
And then we covered up in the first slide, which is available on the YouTube.
Yes.
Everything, all the information is there.
Absolutely. Please remember that and tune in or look at the YouTube and Google some of the questions that were taken then and the contributions. Thank you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.